God bless you all. God bless you all. And I never thought anything like this could happen in America. Never thought it could happen. The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it. From the beginning, the Democrats spied on my campaign. Remember that? They attacked me with an onslaught of fraudulent investigations. Russia, Russia, Russia. Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. Impeachment hoax number 1. Impeachment hoax number 2. The illegal and unconstitutional raid on Mar-a-Lago, right here. They're lying to the FISA courts, the FBI and DOJ relentlessly pursuing Republicans. The unconstitutional changes to election laws by not getting approvals from state legislators. The millions of votes illegally stuffed into ballot boxes and all caught on government cameras. And just recently, the FBI and DOJ in collusion with Twitter and Facebook in order not to say anything bad about the Hunter Biden laptop from hell, which exposes the Biden family as criminals and which, according to the pollsters, would have made a 17-point difference in the election result. And we needed a lot less than that, like about 16.9. It would have been in our favor, not my favor, our favor, because our country is going to hell. And we remember the 51 intelligence agents who said Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. It didn't exist. It was Russian disinformation. Remember that? And that was all confirmed strongly by the FBI when they all knew that it wasn't Russian disinformation. And so much more. Our elections were like those of a third world country. And now this massive election interference at a scale never seen before in our country, beginning with the radical left, George Soros-backed prosecutor Alvin Bragg of New York, who campaigned on the fact that he would get President Trump. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. This is a guy campaigning. He wanted to get President Trump at any cost, and this before he knew anything about me, didn't know a thing about me. He was campaigning. As it turns out, virtually everybody that has looked at this case, including rhinos and even hardcore Democrats, say there is no crime and that it should never have been brought. Never have been brought. Ever. Even people that aren't big fans have said it. They said this is not the right thing to do. It's an insult to our country, as the world is already laughing at us for so many other reasons, like our open borders, our incompetent withdrawal from Afghanistan, where we left behind American citizens, $85 billion worth of the best military equipment in the world, lost 13 magnificent young lives, and far too many to mention that are so badly hurt with the loss of arms and legs and facial obliteration. The most embarrassing time in our country's history, in my opinion. Then our give up on energy independence and even energy dominant. We're going to be dominant within 6 months, more than any other nation ×2. We had this all just 3 years ago. Our raging crime statistics, if you look in Democrat-run cities, numbers the likes of which we have never seen before. The open threats by various countries of the use of nuclear weapons, something never mentioned or discussed by outside nations during the Trump administration, and which could very well lead under the Biden administration's leadership to an all-out nuclear World War III can happen. We're not very far away from it, believe it or not. An economy that has been crippled by the biggest inflation we have seen in more than 60 years. and a military that I used to defeat ISIS in 4 weeks. They said it would take 4 years. 4 weeks. To kill al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, that has now gone woke at the top levels by trying to indoctrinate everyone down to the lowest ranking patriot. But now they have really stepped up their efforts by indicting the 45th President of the United States, who received $75 million votes, which is more than any sitting president in the history of our country. And in the wings, they've got a local racist Democrat district attorney in Atlanta who is doing everything in her power to indict me over an absolutely perfect phone call, even more perfect than the one I made with the president of Ukraine. Remember, I kept saying that's a perfect call. This one was more perfect. Nobody said, sir, you shouldn't say that. Many people on the phone. Or hung up in disgust because of something I inappropriately said. Because nothing was said wrong. In fact, at the end of the call, we agreed to continue our conversation about election fraud, and election fraud specifically in Georgia at a later time. Many people on the phone, including lots of lawyers, nobody found anything wrong with that perfect call until a book promotion tour many months later. All of a sudden they say, you know, I remember Trump making a call. Let's look at that. This fake case was brought only to interfere with the upcoming 2024 election, and it should be dropped immediately. Then you have a radical left lunatic known as a bomb thrower who is harassing hundreds of my people day after day over the boxes hoax. You know, the boxes hoax, as we call it. Just so everyone knows, I come under what's known as the Presidential Records Act, which was designed and approved by Congress long ago just for this reason. Under the act, I'm supposed to negotiate with NARA, the National Archives and Records Administration, which as of this date is a radical left troublemaking organization that red flags the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights as dangerous and triggering. Can you imagine? This is what we have to deal with. But there is no criminality under the Presidential Records Act. That is not what it's all about. We were negotiating in very good faith, proper way, in order to return some or all of the documents that I openly and in very plain sight brought with me to Mar-a-Lago from our beautiful White House, just as virtually every other president has done in the past. When FBI and DOJ officials with NARA were here, I told my lawyer to show them the very secure storage room in which they were locked. The FBI's sole request in writing was, could you please put another lock on the door? We immediately complied. It's a lot different than the Biden situation, isn't it? The next thing I know, we were raided by many gun-toting FBI agents who took whatever they wanted, including my passports and medical records. Everybody was in shock. Nobody had ever heard of such a raid before. Can't even believe it. Who would think that that could happen today? I immediately thought of the Fourth Amendment that protects against unreasonable search and seizure. But they did it anyway because our justice system has become lawless. They're using it now, in addition to everything else, to win elections. Apparently, they're not looking at me through the view of the non-criminal Presidential Records Act. They came up with a new one. This is a new one. And they're looking at me through the Espionage Act. Think of that. How does that sound? Of 1917, where the penalty is death. Even though that has absolutely nothing to do with openly taking boxes of documents and mostly clothing and other things to my home, which President Obama has done, the Bushes have done, Jimmy Carter's done, Ronald Reagan has done. Everybody's done. In fact, Hillary Clinton got rid of 33,000 emails, and that was okay. But nobody's done it like Joe Biden. This lunatic special prosecutor named Jack Smith, I wonder what it was prior to a change, who others of his ilk say he's even worse than they are, is only looking at Trump, yet Joe Biden took massive amounts more documents, even removed many boxes to Chinatown. You believe that? He's got $10 million from China. Where did that come from? I guess they were banking on Hunter's expertise and had others stored in unsecured offices in Pennsylvania and strewn all over his garage floor where his now very famous Corvette is also stored. All over the floor, including classified documents. But that's okay. Perhaps most importantly, he has 1,850 boxes in Delaware, which he is refusing to give up. But isn't that real obstruction? That's obstruction. As president, I have the right to declassify documents. And the process is automatic. If I take them with me, it's automatic, declassified. Biden was vice president. He had absolutely no right to declassify as vice president. He doesn't come under the non-criminal Presidential Records Act. He comes under the very criminal Federal Records Act, unfortunately for him, but it's not going to matter because they don't follow the law, which has very severe penalties. He had classified documents that he took while he was a senator, which is absolutely inexcusable. And other senators, including Democrats, are outraged. But he's not being harassed and hounded like the people who work for me are. In fact, they seem to have forgotten about his documents entirely. So many, thousands and thousands. It's okay with him. They like to say that I'm obstructing, which I'm not, because I was working with NARA very nicely until the raid on my home. But Biden is obstructing by making it impossible to get the 1,850 boxes or explain why many documents were located in Chinatown. Can't explain it. Why were they in Chinatown? I don't know. Lastly, I'm under investigation. This time a civil investigation by another racist in reverse, who also campaigned on, I will get Trump. I will get him. This was her campaign. Never ran for office. I will get him. Her name is Letitia James. And she proclaimed while campaigning, quote, I look forward to going into the office of the Attorney General every single day, suing him, and then going home. Just before she knew me. She announced, what is fueling my soul right now is Trump. And that she had her eyes on Trump Tower. Those eyes are focused on Trump Tower. Didn't know the young lady. She even assured her supporters in an election promise that we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the ass. He's going to know my name personally. And then she claimed that I was an illegitimate president. Think of it. With all we did on energy, with all we did on the military, on taxes, biggest tax cuts in history, biggest regulation cuts in history, right to try, people able to get drugs now that aren't approved. Hopefully you don't have that problem. Letitia James vowed to use every area of the law to, quote, investigate President Trump and his business transactions. Those transactions are going to be investigated, she said. And that of her family and his family. Because we're going after his family, and we're going after them hard. This is all before entering office and all before knowing anything at all about me, but she's gonna get me. This is why, along with unrelenting crime, so many people and companies are leaving New York. She said that I falsified my financial statements, but in fact we're proving and will prove that my financial statements were substantially more than we submitted, not less. And in all cases have a strong disclaimer clause in them which tells the institutions that may look at that if they want to, not to rely on the statement. But they've got a problem with their case because, number one, I'm very underleveraged. They can't believe it. All the stuff they read and gave, and have very little debt relative to the value of assets. And importantly, not one bank has lost even $1. She was investigating me to save banks. They have very good lawyers. But they didn't lose $1 with us during this period of time. In fact, the banks we're talking about made almost $200 million off Donald Trump, and they liked me very much. We never missed a payment, never got a default notice, had a great relationship with all of them. I don't need banks. I have a lot of cash. I built a great business with my family, built a fantastic business. I have a son here who's done a great job, and I have another son here who's done a great job. And Ivanka, and Barron will be great someday. He's tall, he's smart, but I have a great family, and they've done a fantastic job, and we appreciate it very much. They've done it. So she's suing me over banks that weren't defrauded, when she should be focused on violent crime that's driving people out of the state. This is a persecution, not an investigation. She's put our family through hell. It's cost hundreds of millions of dollars to defend, but our heads are held very, very high. They want to settle the case, but I want no part of that. So here we are now. It's where we were today, in a city that was so great just 4 or 5 years ago. But now we're there, spend time there today, as you possibly read, with a local failed district attorney charging a former president of the United States for the first time in history, on a basis that every single pundit and legal analyst said, there is no case, there's no case. They kept saying, there's no case. Virtually everyone. But it's far worse than that, because he knew there was no case. That's why last week he delayed for a month and then immediately took that back and threw this ridiculous indictment together. Came out today, everybody said, this is not really an indictment, there's nothing here. My lawyers came to me and they said, there's nothing here, they're not even saying what you did. The criminal is the district attorney because he illegally leaked massive amounts of grand jury information, for which he should be prosecuted, or at a minimum, he should resign. And Alvin Bragg's wife confirmed a report that claimed her husband has Trump nailed on felonies. She has since locked down her Twitter account. His chief prosecutor, who represented the Democrats and crooked Hillary Clinton in a firm run by Chuck Schumer's brother, Robert, he quit the firm in order to go to work in the DA office in order to get Trump. Can you imagine that? Hillary Clinton's lawyer, Democrat firm. Ultimately, he quit as chief prosecutor because Bragg didn't think he had a case. Think of the same guy that brought this ridiculous thing today. Yet during his investigation, this prosecutor named Mark Pomerantz wrote and published a book saying all sorts of privileged things, and has been very strongly reprimanded. He was reprimanded so strongly. I've never seen anything like it. That's probably the end of it. But what he did was probably very illegal, but he was very, very strongly reprimanded. Even District Attorney Bragg was furious with him. They were having a tremendous fight in the office because of it. But hope is never lost, because various prosecutors in the DA's office also quit because they thought President Trump was being treated very unfairly. How about that? Isn't that great? Oh, I love them. I'd like to meet them. I'd like to meet them. The DA's office even had a web page. Meet the team of executives who have done this to President Trump. That was the title. Isn't that nice? They immediately had to take it down. Meanwhile, overall crime in New York was up 30% last year, much more than that the year before, with felony assaults, robberies, and burglaries all up by massive, massive numbers. Not the same place that I know, not the same place that you know. And this is where we are right now. I have a Trump-hating judge with a Trump-hating wife and family, whose daughter worked for Kamala Harris and now receives money from the Biden-Harris campaign, and a lot of men. We recently had another trial, and the same judge told the fine man who worked for me for many, many years that if you admit your guilt, you will be in jail for 90 days. But if you don't, if we go through a trial and you're found guilty, you're going away for 10 years and maybe longer, which for a 75-year-old man with a great family really means life. What the prosecutors and judge did to that man, I will never forget, because it's right out of the old Soviet Union. That's where we are. They said, you say anything about Trump, meaning that's bad, and you won't even have to serve the 90 days, you'll walk free. And they say that to many of my employees. We have this Jack Smith lunatic threatening people every single day through his representatives. They're threatening jail terms. But talk about Trump and you'll go free. This is where we are as a nation. Who would have thought? They can't beat us at the ballot box, so they try and beat us through the law. That's the country in which we live, however, right now. The USA is a mess. Our economy is crashing, inflation is out of control. Russia has joined with China. Can you believe that? Saudi Arabia has joined with Iran. China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea have formed together as a menacing and destructive coalition. Would have never happened if I were your president. Would never have happened. Nor would Russia attacking Ukraine have happened. All of those lives would be saved. All of those beautiful cities would be standing. Our currency is crashing and will soon no longer be the world standard, which will be our greatest defeat, frankly, in 200 years. There will be no defeat like that. That will take us away from being even a great power. If you took the 5 worst presidents in the history of the United States and added them up, they would not have done near the destruction to our country as Joe Biden and the Biden administration have done. Incredibly, we are now a failing nation. We are a nation in decline. And now these radical left lunatics want to interfere with our elections by using law enforcement. We can't let that happen. With all of this being said, and with a very dark cloud over our beloved country, I have no doubt, nevertheless, that we will make America great again. God bless you. and God bless America. Thank you very much, everybody.
Well, given that everybody else had their say about what occurred up in New York, I figured it was only fair that we give the former president his say. Now, don't disagree with pretty much everything he said. In fact, I would be hard-pressed to think back to anything regarding this particular topic that that I have disagreed with. You see, in this particular case, it's something that maybe I haven't illustrated or eloquated well enough about morality. Let's see if we can just get a decent picture of Florida up here. Florida is very different this way. And I've been trying to keep up with your comments and everything. We got 552 people watching. This whole Stormy Daniels lives about an hour and 10 minutes west of me. Maybe an hour and 15 minutes. She lives over in Ocala, Florida. And she's married. And she's been married for a long time. Even while she was making movies, she's married. Now, there's a whole bunch of different ideas that are all getting conflated that shouldn't be. And this is kind of the problem, I think, where people misunderstand what I'm saying. Did he probably have the rolls in the hay? Sure. And was there probably some talk of her talking to somebody to try to roll a story out there? A lot of people forget the tone of the country way back in 2015. At 2015, long time ago. But a lot of people really forget what the tone of the country was. People look back now, and there were a lot of people that were speculated to be Trump's running mate back then. It's like, Trump can't run, number one. Now, we're going back to 2015 here. 2015, you got to go back to that mindset. A lot of people were saying, conservative, good, decent people. Number one, he's got all this history as a Democrat. And number two, he's got some issues in his background, moral issues, because he used to run with kind of the Playboy crowd, the Playboy Mansion crowd, the jet setters. And he used to do this. And a lot of people said, he's going to have to somehow find a way to clean up that past image, because a lot of this is going to come back to haunt him. And there was never any appeared on the cover of Playboy. And the woman that he appeared on the cover of Playboy with went to prison for a long time for running drugs. And that's, a lot of people think that picture of him on the cover of Playboy is Photoshop. It's not. He absolutely did. He absolutely did. So with everything, plus him being friends with the Clintons and all this kind of stuff, and even, who remembers in the debate when Hillary Clinton tried to trap him when he was debating Hillary Clinton? And she said, he took advantage of this horrible tax loophole. And she tried to confront him. He's like, yeah, so did I, and so did Soros, and so did all of your Democrat donor buddies and all this kind of stuff. And he knew this and even said, look, I've been with these people. I know these people. I was part of their inner circle, their group of people for a long time. So go back to 2015. When all this was happening, he picks Mike Pence. And a lot of you are like, why does he pick Mike Pence? It's like, well, he's trying to bring in the moral majority. He is trying to bring in the Christian right, trying to bring in, the folks that are a little bit hesitant about whether they want to see him, because there were a lot of other people out there that didn't have this baggage that he had and there were a lot of people running at the time. There was Christie, and there was Rubio, and there was Romney. I remember the whole huge stage of 15 of them, 16 of them. So, I mean, this was the mood and the tempo and the tone back in 15 and 16. So when all this came out, now remember, Stormy Daniels, that was 2006. I mean, this is way back in the day. So it wasn't unbelievable that he might have had this and maybe many others. But this is kind of a Florida culture thing. You see, we don't say that, okay, because this person did this or made these choices, that they're then now morally unqualified to do this, or this other thing. Florida is very forgiving that way, in that particular sense. There's a lot of guys out there, a lot of people in positions of power throughout Florida that have been in open relationships, that have been in marriages where there was arrangements, where there was time off and hall passes and all this kind of stuff. So Florida looked at Trump very differently than, say, perhaps Tennessee did. Even though you think, well, Tennessee's conservative, Florida's conservative. Yeah, that's true. Tennessee's more Bible belty. They're more, same thing with Missouri, Southern Indiana. They're not quite as, they're a little more uptight. So when I now see this, I say, okay, yeah, I totally believe that he had the roll in the hay, and that maybe he threw her for a few bucks to maybe keep it quiet. But down here in Florida, we don't see that as a crime that rises to the level of needing prosecuted. Because nobody's going to know that or not know that, and based on that, vote or not vote for somebody. It's not something that we would even take into consideration. It wouldn't be an antagonizing factor. Nobody's going to say, well, gosh, I was really in the boat for Donald Trump, but then I heard he had this affair with this girl, and that means I'm completely a Democrat now. Nobody does. And the same thing the other way. There's no Democrat who is on the fence thinking, oh, maybe I should vote for Biden, maybe not. And that, it just doesn't work that way. And what I've been trying to illuminate on my channel is that when things get tough, things get rough, things get bad, there are going to be a lot of people, especially down here in Florida, that are going to look the other way while a lot of immoral things happen. One of the biggest immoral things going on right now, and I say immoral in giant air quotes here, is the whole gambling discussion going on in Florida. See, way back in the day, when Christians were socialists, so to speak, they wanted to get rid of all the booze. They wanted to get rid of all the brothels, all the bawds, all the skin shows, all that stuff. They wanted gambling gone, they wanted booze gone, and they wanted women gone. They wanted all that taken out of society. All that superfluous, entertainment-based wastes of money. And they were also the same people that sent the cops to the beaches. And if there were girls there that were not covered up enough, they carted them off. Exactly. Well, exactly. Idle Myers. About the money given to Paula Jones by Clinton. Sure. So she didn't truth seek her. That's not true. She did not recount her story. That's absolutely, that is a false, fictitious lie. She did not. She never has. She has never once recounted her story. She's equivocated about the money, but not about the affair. But this is what happens. You get this information from Breitbart and all these other garbage sites. So it's, she had the affair with the guy. He had the affair. It happened. Everybody knew it happened. You don't go to, yeah, Laura, it is. It's a lot of, it's a much ado about nothing. It's really, for those of you that want to see Shakespeare basically reenact what's going on now, go back and watch Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. So, well, okay, A. Baker, you've seen the state. I guarantee you haven't. I'm sure you've seen probably snippets of things that are have been cobbled together where she was talking about one thing and they've told you she was talking about another. I mean, she absolutely did. Because there were other people that corroborated it before it became a problem. Okay, Jeff Hinckley, not even talking. Now you're talking about two different things. Okay, the whole grabbing of the crotch thing is an entirely different discussion and has nothing to do with the Stormy Daniels thing. Yeah, well, exactly what Thomas Whitestone said. How many current politicos have NDAs and paid off call girls? Tons. Tons. That it wouldn't have happened would have been odd, would have been very strange. See, way back before this became a big deal, before Trump even decided to run for election, there were other people that corroborated it. There were other people that corroborated, that were there, that saw her and coming in and out of his room, and he wasn't shy about it, and he talked to other people about it. And it wasn't a big deal. That was the whole point. It wasn't a big deal. It was a yawning kind of story. Oh, Donald Trump. Wow, Donald Trump has an affair with a porn star. Why would you take a picture with a porn star in front of a Wicked Pictures backdrop? I mean, it just is what it is. So that part of it, yeah. Now the rest of this nonsense, where this particular piece of paper says that this money went here and this other one says it went there, and then this money was for this and that, this is all garbage. And that's what Donald Trump was talking about tonight. All this 130 grand to these people is walking around money. I know a lot of people are like, 130 grand up there to these people, Manhattan, this group, this crowd, 130 grand. You probably got 130 grand shoved in a sugar bowl somewhere. And that's just how they are. They live in a very different world, different sets of zeros with those folks. So the amount of how moral would anyone be with $1 billion? Yeah, that's a great statement. How moral would any of us be with $1 billion? Meaning any wish, anything that pops into your head, you can have. Imagine if that was your life. Anything that pops into your head, you can have, just for the asking. I mean, a lot of people don't realize this. Do you realize that Donald Trump walks around in bespoke suits, right? How many of you out there know what a bespoke suit is? Who can tell the audience what BESPOKE means? That means every suit he wears, and he's probably got 3, 4, 5 dozen at least. Okay? It is a suit where he specifically is measured, and they cut it exactly to him. Nothing off the rack. He doesn't wear a size. He doesn't. None of his clothes are off the rack, are out of a bag, came from a store. Every single thing Donald Trump wears was custom cut by a clothier for him specifically. And he's got dozens and dozens and dozens of suits. Every single one of them worth somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. At least. I'd say probably closer to 10. His shoes were literally cut for his feet. Specifically, and he's got dozens and dozens of pairs, and people to polish them, and people to launder them, and every single day, a brand spanking new, fresh, bespoke suit cut just for him. Tailor-made. Okay, and that's not just him, but both of his sons, and I'm sure Ivanka as well. You see, this is the life these people live down there is a completely different thing. And it was part of, in a comparative sense, there's no comparing him and Biden. But in a comparative sense, when he was running and he was talking about the common man, I'm like, oh boy, this is a stretch. This man's 2 or 3 dozen suits. Each suit is probably worth more than most of their cars that they drove to the rally. It's and there was one picture I saw where he had his tie off. He was walking off Air Force One. I'm surprised that was even allowed. because I've never seen him other than in his golfing gear. Yeah, exactly right. That's probably why she was upset. Only 130 grand. Only 130 grand. And look, she's doing pretty well. She's got her own directing deal, and she still does acting, and she makes good money. She makes really good money. She made good money long before him. She was one of them. She was one of their top. In fact, I think she was the top actress when he met her. I mean, she was making, of course, she wasn't a billionaire, but for her age, 28, 29, 30 years old, she was making a ton of money. So, anyway, so I just wanted to leave that there. I wanted to give the guy his chance to speak. And like I said, he was exactly right about what he's going through. But, got to remember this too, guys. For a long time, these were his people. For a long time, this was his group. This is who he ran with. This was his crowd. And now, given this, a lot of people say that was a long time ago. Not that long ago. In 2006, in 2006, Donald Trump was a Democrat. In 2006, Donald Trump was a Democrat. So who do I prefer? I don't prefer anyone to run a country, Jose Munoz. We don't live in a country where where the president doesn't run the country. We have 50 states. Every state has a governor, and every state is run by its own executives. As we can see, look at the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, and look at Ron DeSantis in Florida. You could not see two more different people. And there would be no leader you could ever elect that could ever bring together Kathy Hochul and Ron DeSantis. There's no human being in the world that could do this. We have 50 independent states that are meant to govern themselves. That little district up in Washington, D.C. is simply there meant to facilitate and streamline and grease the wheels, so to speak, of the states and help them work together. But it was never meant to be the ultimate final hammer drop authority on everything that goes on in the United States. It was never meant to be that. This is what a republic is. And it's questions like that that are traps. When people ask those questions, well, who do you want to see in charge? Nobody. That's my point. That's the entire point. I want the people of Oklahoma, God bless them, to do whatever they want to do. And if Florida doesn't agree with it, not our problem. I want the people of South Dakota and the people of West Virginia and the people of Oregon and New York to have the governments that they want. And if people don't like it there, if they get outvoted, leave. This has always been this. Earlier, somebody's like, don't stay and make New York great again. Some places, forget it. Some places, just forget it. If you want to live in conservative areas, there's tons of them. From Tennessee to Florida, from Texas to North Carolina. Dozens of states and cities. Go live in the Southeast. If you want to go live a progressive lifestyle, God bless you. Go live in San Fran. Go live in LA. Go live in Portland. If you want a more uptight Bible Belt restricted life, go move into Southern Illinois or Indiana or Iowa or Missouri. Where they'll, make sure that nobody has any freedom either way, one way or the other. We have so many, different options. That's why I thought who saw today's video? Who saw today's video earlier? How is it that the gay agenda people, how is it that they can rate Cuba near the top of the places in the world that you can go to be accepted, the whole woke gay agenda thing? How is it Cuba is so fantastic, but near the bottom, near the very, very bottom is the Bahamas, Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Dominica, all these places, they're like right at the bottom. But Cuba is super fantastic. But Florida, when you look at the 50 states that they rate, Florida's right at the bottom. So according to them, somehow Cuba, Havana, is this shining light of gay friendliness, completely surrounded by Jamaica is like down by North Korea. I mean, it's way down there. It is. I mean, just go to Wikipedia and look up gay friendly, and they rank all the countries in the world, and they rank all of the states in the union. And you will be shocked. You will absolutely be shocked to see all of these places that are supposedly, against the woke agenda, against the trans agenda, are all of these places that, strangely, we have been led to believe are all the evil places. Isn't that strange? I mean, really, Jamaica is way down with there's Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Iran and all of the places that have Sharia. But Jamaica is down there with them, with all the places that have Sharia. Same thing with Haiti and the Dominican. It's crazy. Venezuela. So it's just a very odd thing. But one thing, when I was reading about why Cuba is so gay friendly, apparently they had a constitution at one time, a constitutional provision that labeled marriage between man and a woman, and they just got rid of this back in apparently 2019. They had gotten rid of this, and Havana, there's this big Miami Havana thing going on with Key West and all this, that this is all apparently now the extreme southeast of Florida, and Havana, this area here is all Miami, super friendly, but they label the Bahamas way down. Bahamas is very anti-gay. I'll tell you what, they didn't even have to tell me about the Dominican. Anybody who's ever been to the Dominican Republic, man, I tell you what, it's ugly there. They take that crap real seriously. So it's very strange, because when you hear people talk about capitalism and people talk about judging what is successful by wealth, that's a very odd thing to hear, especially from Christians. They're like, well, a lot of people said, well, Florida Maquis, if you think Venezuela is so great, why don't you go live there? There's a lot of beautiful places in Venezuela. And since when is the idea of living a Christian life dovetailed in with being fat and happy and having all of your wants and needs and desires met at every turn, like here in North America? Since when is that the delineator for what a successful, good Christian lives like? Every scripture I ever read talked about fasting and talked about poverty and putting away the things of this world to be closer to God. And if that's the case, America's got a comeuppance moment about what its values are. I mean, isn't that the club that everybody likes to hit people over the head with? Well, all these places, you can tell they're evil because they're poor. Since when? Please show me in the Bible, chapter and verse, where poor equals evil. Show me this, where there's some type of a moral equivalence that you are morally right and blessed by God just because you have a big house and cars and all this food and all this kind of stuff. There were lots of people back then too that were, how does the Bible describe it? They were marrying, giving in marriage, buying and selling, running to and fro. Was that the days of Noah? Was that Sodom and Gomorrah? So, anyway, I probably should get off the soapbox here. But thank you, MOT Transformers. It's a very strange thing. And they're executing people in some African countries for exactly right. Uganda just came out and said that it is up to the African nations to save the world from homosexuality. The leader of Uganda said it is up to African nations now to save the world from the scourge that is homosexuality and the gay woke agenda. Who would have thought? Who would have thought a poor, backward, nowhere place like Uganda would get it right? Seriously. Uganda and what's the other? Chad. I think. No, wait, no, wait. It's Uganda and which what's right here? Ghana. I think it was Ghana or Guinea. Banning it, absolutely banning, completely, even encouraging. Sorry, I had to delete some stuff, but anyway, I'll leave it there before I probably say something that gets me kicked off again for 7 days. So anyway, I will leave that there, but it's going to be an interesting summer for sure. Absolutely. So God bless. Have a wonderful week and like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.